What I'm about to share with you is something that will separate you from other photographers who are starting out just like you, or maybe even those who have been shooting for years and years. If they don't have this, then they could be limiting themselves from their true potential. In this video, I'll share with you something that will place you ahead of the curve and make it clear that you're serious about photography and want to start with the right foot forward. I'm going to save you some time and show you how you can go from thinking like a beginner to thinking or seeing things like a pro photographer. Listen, there are literal thousands of tips that you can look up online that will help you improve as a photographer. But what's really going to skyrocket your photography is how you go into taking a photo and the things that you're thinking about to achieve the best shot. This is something that I learned over time through my experience as a creative portrait photographer, but I'll lay it out all nicely here so you can remember it for the next time you pick up your camera. So one of my biggest revelations as a photographer, and what really took me from thinking like a beginner to thinking more intentionally, is to really see the things that are around you. Because really, photography's biggest asset is your environment, right? Like, your environment is what makes up your photo. I kind of go over this in my last video where I talk about how slowing down and seeing things with an intentional eye with your photography can actually refine your skill, because it makes it so that you focus on the two things that are the most important things in any genre of photography, and that's lighting and composition. And when you start to regularly think in this way, you begin to understand that everything plays a part in your photo, not just your subject, but the light, the textures, the mood. But it's hard to keep tabs on all of these different elements in your photo, especially when you're first starting out. Like, I heard of this thing when I started to get really into plants. I never even realized what kind of houseplants were around me or that they even existed until I started to enjoy plants as like a hobby. It's called plant blindness, and it's where we don't even notice when a plant is in a room or even give it much thought because we're so focused on our day-to-day life. It's basically like they don't even exist. I bring this up because, like, inversely in photography, I would just block out all the details around my subject. Like, if I knew I was in a decent location, I didn't have to worry about how to compose a shot. Because I thought like, oh, we're in a pretty flower field, so like the shots are gonna turn out fine, right? Even so, I remember looking through my viewfinder and thinking like, I don't know what to look for, or like, I don't know how to make this shot look good. My environment's nice, the location is fine, but like, what is gonna take this from just a quick picture of whatever my subject is to something that I'm really proud of and can't wait to add to my portfolio? Do you see how all of this goes back to using your environment to your advantage? Little changes in how you approach it can make a huge difference. So here are some things that you can take with you on your next photo shoot or anytime you're feeling stuck. The biggest thing that seasoned photographers aren't afraid to do is to simply move around. In fact, it's probably one of the best tools that they have that they use all the time. I mean, I use it all the time. I've been there when I'm feeling so determined about a certain shot. I just like keep chipping away at it like something's gonna change, something's gonna get better, I'll change up my settings, but I just get so lost in it and I forget to switch it up. For me, this mostly comes up whenever I feel like I have to use the lighting in like a certain way. And so I'll just try to force it in my photo, or I'll tell myself like, oh, I'll just fix it in post. But it can really make your job so much more difficult and like way less enjoyable when we get rigid about these certain ideas. So like, sure, grab that shot just so you have it, but like make sure you move on and try something new and see what other photo opportunities are like literally right in front of you. This actually happened to me recently. I was photographing a shoot and I was really excited about using this paper backdrop as like a way to subframe my subject, but it just like, it kept falling off the wall. The tape wasn't good. It's cursed. It's cursed. It was like the first time I was using the studio, so I wasn't used to the lighting, and it was like really cloudy and overcast that day when I was expecting it to be direct sunlight. I was just like flustered through the whole shoot because I felt like nothing was working. I was so excited about using that paper backdrop, but I ended up just scrapping the whole idea and moved my angles so that I could get more direct window light on my subject instead of having such a strong light only casting like one side of her. So instead of trying to force anything, I chose to move on from things that just weren't working and decided to try out different angles so that I could walk away from the photo shoot with something that I liked. So on your next shoot, when you're starting to run into issues, move to a spot that has shade if the sunlight is too strong. Have the model stay where they are and just move around them to see if the light is more flattering on them. Or maybe you'll find that the background is more interesting or works better for your shoot. Even just moving your camera like the teeniest little tweak can make a huge difference in the storytelling of your photo. You'll catch me all the time like pulling my camera downward to get like a lower angle. It's like one of my fave angles of all time because it just totally changes up the mood of a scene without like a ton of effort. I mean, I love it so much that I'm willing to like lay on the ground to like get the shot. So another aspect of moving around that is so easy to implement but is incredibly helpful is just moving so you include or don't include certain elements in your photo. What I mean is like testing out different angles and like how close or far away you are from your subject to tell different stories. One of my favorite things about photography is to really fool the eye into thinking that you're in this like beautiful location when in reality, you might just be in a commercial parking lot that just happens to have some flowers in it. Once I was out and I saw these pretty roses one day and I was like, I need to shoot here. I called up a friend and was like, hear me out. It's a parking lot, but it's gonna be so good. We pulled up to this parking lot and she was like, okay, like we can work with this. But what I did was I made sure my shots were close to my subject and I cropped out any trace of a parking lot. So it ended up looking like we were in this like beautiful garden. No one was able to tell that these photos were taken next to a Michael's craft store. It's actually so satisfying when you pull it off. And it's really a great trick when you feel like you don't have access to like beautiful locations. You just have to have like a keen eye on your day-to-day and look for those photo ops and like experiment with your environment. You catching on to the theme of the video? Your environment is everything, and it's up to you as a photographer to like see those little moments and see those little gems in your day that other people might not even catch on to. Having that ability to see those little gems in the mundane is like a really telltale sign that you're a good photographer. Alrighty, now if you're completely new to photography, and I mean like you just got your new camera like today, I want you to just focus on taking pictures of everything and like as often as you can. Because really that's what's gonna improve your photography. Just going out and actually taking the photos. Build up your photo bank, you know? Now this is more for those who have maybe gotten a few photo shoots down, but it's still good to pay attention to early on. Now I'm not trying to call out anyone too much in this video, especially because I certainly still have a habit of this. But there have been so many times where I've seen photographers, new and established, either just stand still and just click their shutter button, or they take like a handful of photos and then just move on without a second thought. The issue is that in both of these scenarios, you end up kind of going on autopilot, which doesn't really give you like the space to explore and see opportunities in your photography. It also makes it so that you don't have a lot of variety or like different types of photos in your photo set because you were overshooting the exact same shot like over and over again, or you were undershooting and just don't have like that many photos to begin with. Do any of you guys relate, or do you feel like you're getting called out? Because I certainly do. I certainly have a habit of like overshooting and taking way too many pictures, and then I end up feeling overwhelmed when I upload everything into editing because I was just so afraid of like missing the shot. I think that's technically like a good philosophy to have as a photographer because like that's our job. That's what we do. We get the shot, right? And just with my experience and seeing other photographers, I feel like overshooting is a more common habit, but here's what either of them could mean for you. Firstly, overshooting is a sign that you're not paying enough attention to the details or like the composition, how the lighting is affecting your subject, or even like the details in the background. Or maybe you're just letting the model do all the work. I've worked with some incredible models and they certainly make your job like way easier and like so fun, but it's not an excuse to go on autopilot. They aren't the ones holding the camera after all. Undershooting is also a sign that you're not paying enough attention to the composition or the lighting, but it could also be a sign that you're actually not all that interested in the photo shoot, or maybe something isn't working and you're not quite sure what it is. Regardless of if you do one or the other, the main thing that is getting overlooked is the approach to the environment and how it can best impact your photo. So if you notice yourself starting to over or undershoot, take a moment to look around you, like literally pull your camera down and like look around you and try to find ways to get more involved in how you can make the shot more interesting. And if this is something that you really struggle with, or maybe you feel like you want to spice up or like warm up your creative thinking before you go on the photo shoot, try this out to challenge yourself and unlock new ways on how to compose a shot. And this will be helpful for any type of photography genre that you're into. Take an everyday object like a coffee mug or an extra lens. It doesn't have to be elaborate. In fact, the less elaborate it is, the better. Take that object and just take photos of it. Now here's the challenge. If you're someone who tends to overshoot, limit yourself to only 10 to 15 photos of it. But each photo has to be composed completely differently than the last photo. And bonus if you can set up each shot with like a minute or more in between. This will make it so that you have to get creative and really think about the details in each of those shots. If you tend to undershoot, do the same thing but take 50 photos or more. The same rules apply. Try to compose each shot differently from the last. Get creative. Use different types of lighting. Use direct sunlight if you're scared of direct sunlight, or shoot at night so that you're limited in sunlight. Use flash. Try to get like an action shot, or try to get the shot to look like a product. Doing this little at-home practice will help sharpen your eye and make it so that you're always looking for little advantages in your environment that you can take with you when you go out on an actual photo shoot. And let me know how it all goes. I know it's not always easy to start something new. If you're like me in any way, I tend to get super like hyper focused on like, how do I perfect this? And like, what makes a good photo versus a bad photo? And how do I avoid that? How do I make the good photo? And it's just really overwhelming because photography like has so many rules, like the rule of thirds and don't overexpose and use the proper aperture. But truly in practice, it's really hard to keep all of these different elements in mind at the same time. So I encourage you, keep everything that you've learned about photography in mind and in your back pocket. But shifting the way you think about photography and how you approach taking a photo will directly improve your photography and lead you to understand how to navigate everything when challenges come up, because they will. When I took the time to notice my own thinking patterns and how I used to approach a photo and was able to shift that into something that was more productive, I could feel myself get more relaxed around my perfectionistic thinking and now know when to shift to new ideas and abandon old ones. And the best part of all this is that your gear doesn't matter. What makes a great photographer is something that anyone can achieve, and I hope that this video was able to give you a new perspective on that. I speak more into the intention of taking photos over here in this video, where I talk about how comparison is something that a lot of us photographers deal with all the time. You can check out that video. Here's my Instagram and TikTok if you're interested in following me there. I post most of my portrait photos over on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an incredible week, and I'll see you in the next one. Picture that.